Marcel Magic down in College Station. Who knew that all you had to do was turn to number 10 for a perfect 10 performance in the second half, as Texas A&M proves they are not only a top 10 team in college football, but they're a legitimate threat to win the SEC in 2024. Welcome on into the SEC Unfiltered postgame show. He's Dave Shumate. I'm Cole Thompson, breaking down everything that we saw at Kyle Field as Texas A&M secures the 38-23 victory over the number 8 LSU Tigers. Real quickly, make sure that you smash the subscribe button down below and that ring notification. That way you don't miss a single episode of SEC Unfiltered. Post-game reactions, Sunday Fun Day, Dave Talks Ball, Monday Morning Power Hour. Regardless of what you float your fancy, go ahead and make sure that you hit that subscribe button and that ring notification. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that you follow Dave at Mach 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. This postgame show is brought to you by our friends over at Roback. Go to roback.com, use the promo code SECU for 20% off your very first purchase. Guys, fall foliage is right around the corner. Christmas photos are right around the corner. Look at Dave Shumate. He's going to be taking Christmas photos tomorrow. I guarantee you he wants to be dressed to the nine when he gets to wear Roback. So go ahead and make sure that you go to roback.com, use the promo code SECU. Look your best, feel your best whenever you visit roback.com. Dave, the Aggies have got to be feeling great. The Aggies have got to be feeling like they are at their best because of all it took was one switch, one play, and one opportunity for them to realize change is inevitable. They paid an egregious price, $77 million, to guarantee that Jimbo Fisher was no longer standing on that sidelines. But it doesn't matter because as of Sunday morning, this is a team that should feel like they are ready to compete for a college football playoff spot.
Yeah, I said going into this game, the winner of this game between LSU and Texas A&M was in a driver's seat, worst case scenario, if you really wanted to break it down, just passenger seat in the car it's heading to the road to Atlanta. I think the winner of this has 0 conference losses. Obviously, both teams hadn't lost until since the first Labor Day weekend. But A&M, again, you talked a little bit off air, Cole. Next week, this is the one you circle, you get a little concerned. But after that, if you really don't stub it, if you get South Carolina or Texas, if you win one of those games, you're going to be in the college football playoff and a very good shot of winning or getting to the SEC championship game in Atlanta. So no, A&M's in a phenomenal spot. I still think LSU's in a good spot. One loss in conference, you could still see a path. And then obviously from a college football playoff, but they set up with this loss. It's a playoff game in 2 weeks when Alabama comes to town. Both teams have 2 losses. So that's where they both go from right there. Kind of a tale of two halves, but we'll break it down here. We'll get it a little more in depth here in a second.
Let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Aggies everywhere, you need to thank me. No. You need to appreciate me. You need to understand I am doing you a favor at this point. I am picking against you. And once again, the magic of me going in the opposite direction is playing in your favor. It is, because here we are. Now I'm 0-5 when picking against Texas A&M. And they're winning football games. And they're looking damn good while doing it. So next week, when we do the preview, you got to make sure that I pick South Carolina. Because if I pick Texas A&M, that means I believe South Carolina is going to win. But let's just call a spade a spade. Dave, in the first half, it felt like LSU was going to run away with this. Connor Wigman never was able to find an identity. There was no life on the offense. They were able to kind of minimize the rushing attack. It really felt like that Garrett Nussmeier, Kyron Lacey, this passing attack was taking control. And Mike Elko, who again, this was the beauty of the entire premise of the Connor Wigman era. This was always the beauty of having Connor Wigman miss time. You realized what worked and what didn't, what was going to benefit you when it came to Marcel Reed. You knew that you could go ahead and trust Connor Wigman until he gave you a reason to bench him. He gave you a reason going into the third quarter. You turn to Marcel Reed, and lo and behold, magic starts to come. There is an identity on this offense. They are gaining the momentum. And with every single drive that is culminating in a touchdown, every single drive that is culminating in this offense, every single drive that is pushing Texas A&M forward, it's hurting LSU because they know that they have to strike fast. They know that they have to deliver. They know that they have to show up on the opposing side. And if they don't, well, unfortunately, now you don't have that secondary punch. And give a ton of credit to Texas A&M's defense for keeping that offense at least involved in this game. Give a ton of credit to Marcel Reed when he had the opportunities to strike big. He 100% struck big. When you look at what Texas A&M was able to do tonight, everything showed up in place. It only came when you finally made that switch from number 15 to number 10.
Yeah, and I may be in the minority here. I think you go with the hot hand for both these guys down the stretch. I don't think you can ultimately win a championship with Marcel Reed. Like, I just don't think you're going to stretch the field vertically like that. I think you play the hot hand like Steve Spurrier used to do. I'm not totally sold that Marcel Reed from start to finish when teams have a week of preparation to go for against him. I would go with I would start him next week. But I think 100%. South Carolina's getting at it after him, and he can't stretch the field vertically. You have to go to who can stretch the field vertically when that happens. I'm not 100% sold. I mean, phenomenal for a second half. I mean, what was he, 2 for 2? But that
he was 2 for 2, but he connected on both of his deep shots. So yeah. I mean, that's what you need to look at right now. Is that when he had the opportunity to strike with his arm, he struck with his arm. When he had an opportunity in the crease to run through the avenues and find a way into the end zone, he took it and he didn't shy away from it.
No, but I think it is fair to say, and I'm a guy, I was the only believer. I didn't see many people pick A&M this week. But I will say this. If you give a week to prepare for him, teams are going to – to be fair to LSU and Blake Baker, Blake did not figure it out. He got out-coached in the second half. And again, he's a phenomenal football coach. He's improved this LSU defense. But I think if they knew he's the starter, he doesn't have the success. He's not going 100% as a passer. He's not – I think there's things you can do to confuse Marcel Reed if you go into the week preparing for him to start. So I expect South Carolina to have some – I don't think they're just going to go up and down the field on South Carolina next week because I think South Carolina is going to have a whole week to prepare for him. That's where I'm kind of like, hold up. Before we go say Marcel Reed's going to be in New York, I think he's played well this year. Phenomenal. Has not turned the football over. One of the best second halves, but I'm just looking at it from 35,000 feet. And I'm like, if I'm a defensive coordinator, you give me a week to throw some stuff at him. It's going to be a little different than if he just comes on me in the middle of the second half and the guy starting in front of him provided no threats that this new starting quarterback does. That's what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, A&M credit. I think Colin Klein's more comfortable calling a game when Marcel Reed's in the game.
Well, it's a more mobile quarterback. That's the problem. And then you look back at the guys that he had in Manhattan when they were at their peak, it was because of the mobility at the quarterback position. And so I'm not saying that Connor can't get the job done. I'm not saying that Marcel Reed can win you a championship in the college football playoff. But what I am saying is you have to feel good that when one punch isn't working, the other one will. And you can counteract it whenever you feel like that one guy is not delivering on his end of the bargain to where you turn to the other guy. And now, unfortunately, for defense coordinators everywhere, Auburn, Texas, definitely South Carolina, they have to game plan for 2 quarterbacks moving forward. It has to be in their MO. Because when you think that you're only going to deal with Connor Wigman, then unfortunately you've already shot yourself in the foot. Yeah. When you think that you're only dealing with Marcel Reed, you only have shot yourself in the foot. And so, unfortunately for Blake Baker, it did feel like in this moment, the game plan was let's force Connor Wigman into making as many critical mistakes as possible. And when he does, we will capitalize. It didn't feel like they planned for where they were with Marcel Reed. And I think that right now, every SEC team, including Georgia, including Alabama, including anyone that potentially could make their way to the college football playoff, or better yet, the SEC championship, has to game plan for 2 quarterbacks. I want to give a huge shout out, though, to Texas A&M's defense, Jay Bateman, and especially Mike Elko. I have made this reference all offseason. I have made this reference since the start of the year. The anchor that was found in College Station at the peak of the Jimbo Fisher era was always Mike Elko. It was always having a stout, studious, consistent defensive front that was always going to enable quarterbacks into making mistakes. You watched again tonight as Shamar Stewart, as Shamar Turner, as Nick Scorton, as Scooby Williams, as you throw in Torian York.
Torian York made that big play on the screen.
Everyone made plays, and that front seven consistently in the second half put Garrett Nussmeier in a blender of concern to where he was under pressure, he was under duress, and he never got comfortable. The multiple of interceptions, the consistent plays of BJ Mays stepping on up. You got to give a ton of credit to Texas A&M's defensive line.
I thought the game changed when Garrett Nussmeier got his foot stepped on.
Yeah.
He was never the same after his offensive lineman stepped on his foot. It was just he was gingerly walking off. Yeah, I don't know. It was again, I don't think it's a long-term thing, but maybe a little something a bruised foot or something. I mean, again, like Herb Street was saying, I remember getting stepped on by a kid at a summer camp one time, and I was like, oh my God. So I can imagine his pain. But yeah, it just felt like Garrett Nussmeier went down the tank at that point, and especially the whole LSU second half. It was, I don't know, it was a tale of two halves. I think going back to the first half, LSU left some meat on the bone, as I say all the time. At the end of the first half, they missed. Damian Ramos was not good tonight. I mean, what was he? What was he? I mean, looking it up. I mean, he missed 3 field goals, I think. Damian Ramos was not good tonight. You missed some field goals to end the half. Yeah, he was 1 for 3. You missed a field goal at the end of the half. You felt like you told me if I'm wrong. I felt when LSU was up 10 at half, I was like, this game feels like they're up like 17. It just kind of felt that way.
But the reason was because if they got into red zone opportunities and they were able to go ahead and put up points, but they never did. And that was a big deal. And it wasn't just, and again, special teams are the underlying most forgotten part of the game that we don't pay enough attention to. But at the same time, it wasn't just Ramos. I mean, on that final field goal attempt right before the end of the third quarter, it was a muffed handoff. It was
a long snapper. Yeah.
It was a long snapper punter problem that allowed him to be to stop the ball. And then Marcel Reed was able to capitalize and put himself into the end zone. And that was when, again, momentum started shifting in favor of the Aggies. But that's an area where, again, if you can win in all 3 phases of the game, offense, defense, special teams, and the most underlying one, special teams, then unfortunately, you will have a shot. Well, if you don't have the special teams, it may end up costing you. And on multiple occasions, even though Texas A&M was down, they could have been down by worse. The momentum could have easily shifted to where they say, well, we're not going to win this one. You know what? It's the same old Texas A&M. We're not going to be the team that's able to pull this one out. It's all good. We'll win next week in South Carolina. We'll still be in the college football playoff hunt if they would have made those points. If Ramos would have made those field goals, maybe we are talking about this game in a completely different outlook.
Cole, what do you think about this? Nuss's stats, Garrett Nussmeier's stats the last 4 games. 94 for 170, 55% completion percentage, 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions.
It's rocky, but at the same time, the problem is that, again, there's quarterbacks that exist in the college football world and in the NFL world where you're willing to take those risky plays so long as it ends up being in your favor. And for LSU, a guy like Garrett Nussmeier does fit. And I mean that as kindly as possible, where you look at a guy like Josh Allen. Josh Allen's going to give you 1 turnover per game, or at least he did going into this year. You kind of expected 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Does the turnover outweigh the consistency in the passing attack? Garrett Nussmeier, when he is humming, is one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. Unfortunately, and we brought this up multiple times, when you get 1 turnover, you can expect a second on the horizon. How many did he have tonight? 3. It happens. It's a multi-turnover game. It's concerning in the sense of where you know that this is going to be a game that ends up hurting an LSU offense on multiple drives. But if your defense can play up to a certain brand of football, and at times tonight it did, especially against Connor Wigman in the first half, then you're okay with that turnover because if your defense will get you a 3 and out, you'll get the ball right back and you just go out of sight, out of mind. Unfortunately, when your game plan is only built and predicated around one guy, and then they turn to their secondary option, it's like going to the bullpen. And
it all goes 2 for 2 with the old quarterback switcheroo of these guys.
And the bullpen ends up benefiting you. And it does. And that's what happened tonight. And unfortunately, much like we saw against the other Tigers, the one that came on down and did have any offensive identity today, they planned for the wrong quarterback. And that's the only way that I can put it. And don't take anything away from Texas A&M. Their defense played extremely well. Their offense was phenomenal, especially when it came to the rushing attack to set up the passing plays. They capitalized. I'm not taking anything away from Texas A&M. I want to make this abundantly clear because there are always people in the comment section that say, you want to go ahead and say that LSU or Arkansas or so-and-so fumbled the bag. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is Texas A&M played a great game, but LSU game planned for one quarterback and they went to the bullpen.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, that's why I'm not totally sold on just like Marcel Reed's leading them to the prom. And I think most Aggie fans would say that, but I do think there's going to be a lot of people that are like, you got to go Marcel by himself. That's for sure. I'm sure that'll be a lot of the talk this week. I feel like I don't know. I just feel like it's not over yet. I think you got to play both of them. You start Marcel next week, but you got to see how it goes across the board from that. But no, I mean, it was like A&M took the momentum in the second half and never gave it back.
Never.
It just ran with it. It was like A&M. Cole, if I'd have told you at half, yeah, man, A&M came back and won by double digits, you'd have been like, won by double digits.
Who got hurt? Did Nuss get hurt? They went to the backup.
You're right.
Yeah.
100%.
Not did they switch quarterbacks. 100%. That would have never been my thought. Dave, let me ask you out of curiosity. When we look back now, LSU, they still can make it to the college football playoff. I look at LSU in the same way that I look at Ole Miss. They easily can still find their way to 10 wins. The branding, the logo, the overall persona of what is Tiger football could easily make its way to the college football playoff. But it does concern me that there right now is still questions when it comes to the run game. And when I look at teams like Oregon, and when I look at teams like at one point Texas, but now it's hard to go ahead and throw Texas in the mix. But you look at the overall programs that are expected to be in the hunt for the national title. They can run the football and they have their secondary punch. A&M has an exceptional defensive front seven. They do. Yeah. Nobody's going to kid yourself and say, oh, well, they're overrated with Nick Scorton and Shamar Stewart and Shamar. Nobody's saying that. But at the same time, you have to wonder, this is now another game where they were unable to get anything on the ground. They averaged 1 yard per rush. Is this going to be a concern for Texas A&M? I mean, for LSU when they have to play against an Oklahoma, when they had to play against a Florida, when they had to play against a Alabama in 2 weeks? Because if they can't establish the run and they force Garrett Nussmeier to pass, basically you're already telling everyone we're only going to do this to be successful. And basically, if you can shut down Nuss or find a way to get a couple of interceptions, congratulations, you're walking away with the dub.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think still right now LSU would make the college football playoff. I think if you made me pick right now, I lean them in 2 weeks against Alabama. I just don't think Alabama's disciplined enough to go win that game. Then you got a trip to Florida. You still got Oklahoma left. I mean, I think LSU finishes 10-2 if you made me pick right now in this moment. I would go with 10-2. You're right. I think they'd make the college football playoff.
I'm not saying that they can't make the college football playoff. What I'm saying is that LSU can't contend in the college football playoff because they don't have a rushing attack.
No, I don't think so either. And I think the defense can get got. I mean, you saw, A&M just leaned on the run and ultimately broke through. I just think some teams hadn't leaned on the run against LSU and gone away from it. A&M was committed to it. Even when they were down 10-0 right off the bat, that drive to make it 10-7. What was it? I think it was 3rd and 7. And Colin Klein called a draw. They went and converted. It's like, man, they're committed to this run game. But you're right. I don't think LSU doesn't have a run game. You're right. I don't really see it coming along right now. Yeah, I don't think LSU's an ultimate national title contender, but I do expect them to be in the playoffs. Just, I don't know. I think that Alabama game being at home is big for them.
I think, again, Alabama today, you still have questions when it comes to what truly are they. I mean, when you're already going to Drew Pine and he's throwing errant passes that just land in the breadbasket for anybody, it's like, okay, no problem whatsoever. We'll be good. We'll be content. But then you look, again, on the flip side, and you start talking about where is Alabama versus LSU. If they win that game, all they have to do is not lose another, and they're 10-2, and they're in the playoff. And they have the same type of ambiance the way that Alabama does, where that LSU branding is going to carry a lot of weight for them in the playoff. And also they'll have a top 10 win against a team in Ole Miss that's going to be in the hunt for a playoff spot. And they'll have probably at least a decent loss on paper to where a Texas A&M squad that feels like right now is in the driver's seat to make it to Atlanta. It's not going to hurt them. But still, you and I both agree, when we look at where this passing attack is, where you look at where this passing attack may be, it basically becomes a one-dimensional offense. That's 100% the only way that I can kind of put it.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. They got to get some kind of run game going if they ultimately want to win a championship.
What do you What do you think about Texas A&M at this point? I mean, definitely they're going to be in the hunt for 10-2, 11-1, college football playoff berth naturally. But what else do you need to see to put you in that conversation? Because I'm about ready to say what I think many people already have. They're the real deal. They 100% are the real deal. But can they be the real deal when it comes to a 12-team playoff? Are you ready to put them there yet?
In the playoff? Yeah, I mean, I think if the playoffs started tomorrow, yeah, I would have A&M in my 12-team playoff. Them long-term in the playoffs.
A real threat in the playoff, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know how well you can go win a national championship. Right. I still want to see Marcel Reed throw the football. You're going to have to throw the football more than 2 to 3 times in a game to ultimately go. And again, if he played a full game, he would have. I just want to see, again, and he beat Arkansas, he beat Florida with a full prep. But I think when you play the offenses like LSU, and again, A&M did a phenomenal job against them. I mean, Elko, I think he's the second best schemer, play caller in the SEC on the defensive side of the football right now, behind Glenn Shumate and Kirby Smart.
I say Kirby's number 1, right?
Yeah, and then I think you have Elko. I mean, again, we also about never has had a bad defense. I don't know. I just right now. I mean, how many teams in the SEC do you feel confident in that are truly winning? Again, across the board, I don't really feel confident in saying, "Oh yeah, I would take them right now."
Over A&M.
I got asked on a show preseason, would you take Ohio State and Georgia or the field? And it was just kind of like, all right, now you're watching the games and you're like, I mean, dude, anybody can be God against any other decent team this year.
The only one that I had at the very beginning of the year was Oregon and Texas. I thought that those were the two that were easily going to be the ones that people had to compete with. And I still feel okay about Oregon right now. Texas, again, they went down to the wire on the road in Nashville against a really scrappy Vanderbilt team that I can promise you about 23 other programs would not want to have to face if they were playing at an all-time high. But still, I feel like that, again, you are right. The field is a much better spot. Oregon, the way they play today, the way they've gained momentum since those first 2 weeks is kind of benefiting them. The way that Boise State, the way they played last night is going to definitely benefit them as well. It's very easy to say if you gave me Texas A&M and Georgia at a neutral site location, if A&M was able to have a consistent passing attack, whether it be with Connor Wigman or Marcel Reed, it doesn't matter. Their defense is good enough to get them into this game and make things all the way down to the wire. Their defense is good enough to go against Tennessee. Their defense is good enough to go against Alabama. Their defense is good enough to go against really almost anybody in the country. And it's at that point to where I say, I take the field. Because if I cannot count out Texas A&M, and it's a testament to where the Aggies are, it's a testament to where they've come over the last truly 7 to 8 months. It's a testament to where this team has gone from in terms of at the start of the season, underneath Mike Elko, first game, Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, this passing attack that was very pedestrian to where it is now. It's hard for me to doubt Texas A&M because every single time that I have a slight margin of thinking this is the week where it's going to crumble, they don't. They come back and they look stronger than ever. I thought for sure they were losing against Florida. I thought for sure in the swamp they were not going to be able to pull it out, especially with Connor Wigman not fully healthy. I thought for sure they were going to find a way to mess it up against Arkansas. I thought for sure they were going to find a way to mess it up tonight. They didn't. They had a second punch, and here they are now sitting 5-0 in conference play. Here they are sitting a game away from probably punching their ticket to the SEC championship. All I got to see is them show up against South Carolina next week, and the doubts are gone. They have to be at this point. There cannot be any single doubt because of truly when you look at Texas A&M and where they've come from to where they are, the biggest difference is A&M finds a way to play up to the level of competition in these type of matchups and down to the level of competition against Mississippi State, against an underwhelming Ole Miss team, against a South Carolina on the road. If they win next week, what am I going to doubt? They have a second punch. They have two quarterbacks that both can work in different avenues. And they have a defense that is good enough to get them into a.
Is anybody doubting them right now, though? I don't know.
In a set like again, I still want to see it against what's it called? I still want to
see it beat anybody left on their schedule. I mean, if anybody doubting A&M is a little naive. I mean, who wouldn't be able to say they could win any of these games left on their schedule? I mean, yeah. I mean,
no, I think 100% win is not the question. It's will they? Because of they can win against all 4 of these teams. They should win against 2. They should win without question against 3 of them. But will they is the question. And it's against 1.
This league's so week to week. I mean, you can't ask me Texas and they may have some injuries I don't know about. I don't know. This league is as week to week as I've ever been. So making up the narratives of can they or will they, dude, no clue. Like A&M could lose next week. I kind of lean to it a little bit right now. That's how wild this league is. Really, outside of everyone, really, I don't think Mississippi State can beat everybody in the league. Auburn, I don't think can beat everybody in the league. It's wild to say this because they beat Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss can beat anybody in the league on a given day. I don't think Kentucky can, but everybody else, you tell me they win a game. Yeah, I mean, A&M, yeah. I mean, I think they could win. They could go undefeated. They could lose. They could win out, or they could lose probably 2 games.
I have no idea which way I'm going to lean next week because in my heart I'm thinking that Tennessee. I mean, South Carolina is going to find a way to get a win. But if I pick South Carolina to win, then A&M's going to win because that's just like that. That is just the betting.
That game's going to be interesting. Who generates the most offense from that perspective? Because both defenses are solid. Going to have a good plan. I mean, I don't see A&M, South Carolina moving up and down the field against A&M really either. That's the thing. And the last time Beamer came off a bye week this year, kind of crapped down his leg. I mean, the Ole Miss game was not a great. It's probably their worst performance of the season outside.
And it was at home, which is another big.
Yeah, so it's like, does a bye week really benefit Carolina? I mean, it could. I mean, that's why sometimes I think people automatically assume a bye week's beneficial, and normally it is. But sometimes if you're playing well, you don't really want to go in that bye week. But no.
Dave, let me ask you, when you think about, because you and I both know what Kyle Field is like, the atmosphere tonight in Aggie Land was second to none. It reached a pinnacle of the decibel level that probably would have shattered records in program history. It was phenomenal to watch as Texas A&M and their fan base, they're truly loyal fan base that has waited for these type of moments to be consistent, show out in droves, and be able to benefit from now knowing that it is a new era in College Station. When you think about where Texas A&M is at this point, if they can continue to do business, they can continue to punch their ticket to 11-1, 10-2, make it to the college football playoff, and let's just say that they're a 7 seed. Does it not kind of set in your mind that Kyle Field is going to host a college football playoff game and what that atmosphere is going to do for the Aggies and what it's really going to do for the industry, for people who don't understand why the 12th man, why Kyle Field, regardless if we make fun of it, we call it a cult, we make jokes, it still is for what I would consider a masterful cathedral of chaos.
No, I agree. I mean, that'd be real. Yeah, you're right. Can you imagine a playoff environment there? That'll be awesome. Like you think about that that's why, I mean, they'll never do this, but that's why you always wish they went to like the NFL style where every game until the championships at a home field. I know they won't because the sponsors for the bowl games want their money. I get it. But at games, like playoff games, win or go home, hosted at a place like Kyle Field, that's what makes you a little disappointed they don't do it throughout. But again, at least we get it through the first round. But you're right. I mean, imagine if like Penn State or has to go to Kyle Field for an opening round of a college football playoff game, or Clemson or Miami, somebody, we're getting that again. I don't know. I mean, you're right. It'll be fun.
When you look at Death Valley, when you look at Neyland, when you look at Kyle Field, and they're at their highest level, I mean, I see Paul Garner in the comment section. Paul, I'm just going to let you know right now, Neyland 100% is in my top 3 all-time greatest college football atmospheres. So don't go that way. But what I'm telling you is that when A&M is where it is and when it looks like it does tonight in a playoff game, good God, warms up your heart. If you are a true college football sicko, you love this sport, you care nothing more about anything else on the outside world, you want to see a playoff game in those environments. You want to see one in Death Valley. You want to see one in Neyland. You want to see one in Aggie Land because of those are just different levels of elements. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Willie B stats up next week because if we just watched as 107 screaming Ags did control this environment. And more importantly, the way that they were able to add in the decibel level to force again, multiple false starts, force again, multiple misconsistencies, all of that aside, they factored in as much as I think that the overall defensive and offensive execution by Jay Bateman, by Mike Elko, by Colin Klein did. And I do think that you got to give a lot of credit. The fact that Mike Elko, knowing with 1 minute and 20 seconds left, was able to look at the crowd and start screaming and telling everyone, thank you for helping us get this win. that's when you know that the crowd had a factor in the
Speaking of Elko, listen to this post-game comment. He said, "This is a real program. It's not fake. It's not a politician running this program talking fast and BSing everybody."
But I think Ted Cruz is at the game. That's the only problem. Is that, oh man, is the Ted Cruz curse finally done? Is it lifted? Who knows? I mean, this was, I'm not gonna lie, there was a little part of me that when I saw online that yes, potentially he was gonna be there. It's like, oh, LSU's got this locked up in the bag. I don't think so. Final thoughts. Is Elko the front runner at this point to win SEC Coach of the Year?
What do you think? That's actually a good question about you. What if Vandy gets to 6? Like, it's kind of your like.
If they go to the but think about this.
Right, let's say this, Cole. Just surface level. A&M finishes 10-2, makes the playoffs. Vandy gets to 6. So you give
Elko. And here's.
I don't think there's a wrong answer. Honestly, you can make a case either way.
There isn't, but here's the reason why. Because if you paid $77 million to correct a mistake, and it took 1 year in a transfer portal to fix it, that was it. That's all you needed to go ahead and kind of change the tides. And again,
take A&M to their first playoff. I mean, I know I lean with you. Yeah, I mean, I lean with you. You'd hate it for.
You'd hate it for Clark Lee. You would hate if he went 7-5 and Elko goes 11-1 and goes to the SEC championship in his first year as a head coach. Like, Dave, let's just be completely real. The vibes are higher this year than they ever were underneath Jimbo Fisher. The highest they have gotten at this point is back in 2012 when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman Trophy and they got 11 wins. Because 11 wins are on the table for Texas A&M in 2024.
Oh, yeah. You said 11?
11.
Yeah, I think that's right. 100%. They win. If they win next week, that's legitimate, has a chance to go. I mean, Cole, would you say – I mean, they're probably in the SEC championship game for sure if they win next week. I mean, you wouldn't lock it up probably to Auburn, but
you would have to, I think, wait until the Auburn game just because
lock it up mathematically there. That's what I'm saying. But if they win next week, you feel really good.
If they win next week, if they win next week, at that point, it really comes down to will Texas find a way to mess it up at any point? Because you also have to remember, if Texas does win against A&M, they would hold the tiebreaker. With
who's your SEC championship game right now if you had to pick, gun to your head?
Something internally tells me that we're going to get a rematch of Texas for Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Something in my gut tells me we're going to get a rematch of Texas and Texas A&M.
So you have Georgia dropping one here.
I could see it. I still can see them losing to Tennessee or losing to Ole Miss. I don't think Texas is going to lose another game. And unless Texas A&M drops one next week to South Carolina, I don't think they're going to lose another game until Texas.
You say the SEC championship game race right now, and not mathematically, you think it's down to 4 teams: Texas, Georgia, Texas A&M, and Tennessee?
I would say probably. I think that
because I think Bama's out with 2 losses. LSU only has 1, but they have
the wild card is LSU running the table.
Correct.
Run the table, and then it comes down to tiebreaker scenarios where A&M loses 2, and because if they're at 7-1, they would go because they have the tiebreaker because if they beat South Carolina and then South Carolina beat Texas A&M. It's little things like that to where,
like you said, if South Carolina beats A&M next week and LSU beats Bama, then LSU's right in the thick of, hey, we're in this too if A&M can lose to Texas.
100%. And I think that's kind of the beauty of the SEC. I'm frankly kind of a little annoyed hearing people talk about the SEC being an underwhelming conference this year, when instead the way that we should be looking at it is anybody can beat anybody. And if you threw a team from the Big Ten that's not at Ohio State or Indiana's or Oregon's level, they would probably get eviscerated. If you threw Clemson in the SEC, what would their record be? Or Virginia Tech in the SEC, what would their record be? Or BYU or Iowa State? Because you have a lot of teams that are going to finish 9-3, but that's because of the level of competition. If you threw them and say, I don't know, the ACC, would they not be the favorite to go to Charlotte and hoist up a conference title?
Yeah, they definitely would be.
That's the way I feel about it. Dave, final thoughts on this? Anything you got?
Dude, just a wild, fun game. I know it was a double-digit win for somebody, but it was a Jekyll and Hyde game. It was like
100%.
You felt first half. I was with you, Cole, for a little bit. I was like, man, LSU may go run away with this one just because I don't think Wigman could keep up with him if this was a high scoring game. And it's like, man, LSU's only up 10 at half. That last like 2 to 3 minutes of the half where A&M got the big stop, the missed field goal, that kept them in it. It was like, we're texting buddies in another group is like, man, it feels like they're up like 13 or 17 at half. And then the whole second half, once Garrett Nussmeier got stepped on, it just felt like he was off, the offense was off, and then obviously Marcel Reed was the gaslighter.
We haven't talked about this yet, and so I know that we've been going for a while. Anybody in the comment section, please do us a favor. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, make sure you hit subscribe down below. We do this live every single Saturday, Dave and I, and then we do Sunday Fun Day in the morning. We got over 1,000 people watching this right now, so just real quickly, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and make sure you hit that ring notification. Are we starting to have that conversation about Brian Kelly? Because Brian Kelly did win the big game against Alabama, and he did beat Nick Saban. He did. That's his biggest win so far. And it's the only one to where you can say, yep, yeah, he's got that. And then there's a part of my brain right now to where I feel like that I am actually Brian Kelly sitting in Las Vegas. Every single week I pick against Texas A&M and going, we keep doing it again. And I'm like, is this Brian Kelly at this point? Is it?
I mean, do you give him credit for the Ole Miss win a couple of weeks ago?
I give him credit for it, but I also wonder, again, it's Lane Kiffin. He can't win the big game either. So it's like,
yeah. It was a game LSU definitely could have lost. I mean, they didn't lead any in the game until it was over, which, I mean, that's when it matters.
They led for 0.01 second.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
It's a big game. I mean, I remember Blake Ruffino was saying the Ole Miss game was the biggest game of Brian Kelly tenure. That Bama game in 2 weeks is big for him again, too. If they were to lose that, finish 9-3, I think some people will be rubbed a little bit the wrong way again.
Let me ask you out of curiosity, when you look moving forward, because if we still have games, I think that for sure Ole Miss against Georgia, that's a college football playoff eliminator. Is the ultimate college football playoff eliminator like 100% somebody's being left out 2 weeks, Alabama traveling down to Baton Rouge?
It has to be, because I think the loser would have 3 losses. Just unless total chaos ensued across the sport, I don't think a 3-loss team's getting in.
I will say the only thing that I could give as a little bit of credit here is LSU would be a 2-loss conference team. And if somehow 2 losses with the way that the schedule bounced where they got into the SEC championship and then they won the SEC title, you're not keeping them out.
That's
because
fair.
But
they get and they won it, they get the automatic bid, yeah.
But that's the only team, because of Texas A&M, I don't think that because if they have 2 losses and they're 9-3, it'd be the same scenario. But do they finish 9-3? It's hard for me right now to say 9-3. I think 10-2 is on the table, but I mean, the way that they played tonight defensively, the way that the offense had some life in the explosive plays downfield, and the way that they were able to capitalize with the rushing attack, that will beat South Carolina if South Carolina's offense doesn't show up. It will beat Auburn at Jordan-Hare Stadium. It can hold its own against Texas, especially Texas if they don't have a run game. So it's like, I don't think that they're going to go 9-3. I could easily see LSU go 9-3, but 2 conference losses where that LSU-USC matchup actually benefits them because of the way that college football flipped on its axis, turned upside down, and eventually led them to Atlanta for a rematch against Texas A&M.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, they got a shot just because you said they only have 1 conference loss where Bama has. Bama would have 2. No, but I think to answer your question, it's for sure the first playoff game for both teams.
Beauty of college football. We're talking about the college football playoff, and we still have a month of the sport left because if these are the games that will decide who goes to the playoff, and it's kind of like a playoff. You don't want to what? It doesn't really matter. We're closing out the month of October with great football, and that only means that we get to break in the month of November with even more exceptional football. Don't let anybody tell you that you can take a weekend off because of it is a boring slate. Sometimes all you need is one great game to revitalize you and get you warmed on up, which is why I will be back tomorrow morning to break down everything on Sunday Fun Day at 9 a.m. Central Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. But make sure that you like, rate, review, hit that subscribe button down below, smash that ring notification, give the video a thumbs up. Make sure that also you're following us on all the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at SEC Unfiltered. Follow Dave at Mach 10 Sports, me at Mr. Cole Thompson. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems, and make sure that you check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. For Dave Shumate, I'm Cole Thompson. Aggies, celebrate. Gig 'em. Go Tigers. God bless college football. Stay safe. God bless. Drive safely. Good night.